Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic 90s nerds to my channel, Slime and Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between. But today's video basically encompasses slime, slashers, tons of stuff in between, so literally my intro is very accurate today because we are going to be talking about my flippin' old school April Readathon and Watch-A-Thon. And I am so excited, guys, to tell you about the parameters of the Readathon and or Watch-A-Thon. You could choose to participate in one or both things, it doesn't matter. But I'll talk about more when we get back from this short intro. I flippin' can't wait. Welcome back, guys! As you could see, I am wearing a flippin' 90s Nickelodeon t-shirt because it's thematic, and you'll see why. Because I have got a list of optional prompts for both my Readathon and my Watch-A-Thon. But first, let me just tell you a little bit more about the whole theme in general. Again, the Readathon and Watch-A-Thon, they're both called Old School April. Because really, it doesn't matter the things you read, as long as you're kicking it old school. I kicked what you couldn't see. Kicking it old school. It doesn't matter. It's going to be appropriate. As long as you are reading and or watching things that were released in 2002 or earlier, because we're in 2022 right now, and 2002 is 20 years ago. So either 20 years old or older. That's what we're aiming our reading list to be filled with and our watch list to be filled with, things that are from 2002 or earlier. Now I do, as I teased, have a list of optional prompts that you can choose to do, or you can just ignore the prompts and do it your own way. And here I've got some more details that I want to read you so that I get it right. I don't want to forget anything. Okay, so as I said, you could do the Readathon only if you want. You could do the Watch-A-Thon only if you want, or you can do both. This Readathon and Watch-A-Thon theme really is so general and fluid that you could make it work for whatever you want to do. You could really get creative with it, or you could just literally fill your TBR with random stuff as long as it fits that main criteria of being at least 20 years old or older. So again, you could try to accomplish my prompts, or just whatever you want to do, just fill your TBR and your TBW, which is what I'm calling a to-be-watched list, with whatever you want. So you can fill your entire Readathon with paperbacks from hell, or you could read tons of Goosebumps. So go the adult route, go the YA or old school middle grade route, or do a mix. It doesn't matter. It's up to you guys. That is the beauty of this Readathon theme. I love it. I'm so pumped for this. And in terms of your Watch-A-Thon, you could choose to watch all 80s horror movies, all 90s horror movies, all 70s horror movies, whatever you want to do. Or if you prefer, concentrate on old school kid shows like 90s Nickelodeon shows, or freaking 80s old school cartoons, or even some 90s spooky shows, because there are some of those that existed as well. As I said, it literally doesn't matter. Be creative with your TBRs and TBWs. You can participate in any way that you see fit. Prompts, no prompts, kids books or movies, adult books or movies, YA books, 70s, 80s, 90s, adult books or movies, whatever. If you want to replace my specific prompts that have to do with the 90s with a different era, like the 70s, say you're not into the 90s, go ahead and change up my prompts and still use them as a guideline if you want. You could do that as well. Anything works as long as you keep it old school. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're kicking it old school. And you could easily craft your TBR, by the way, so that you're participating in my Readathon, but also celebrating halfway to Halloween. Because yes, April is the month of halfway to Halloween. And guess what? This is so flexible that you could also make your TBR work for my Readathon, Old School April, but you could also make it work for Gabby and Olivia Rita Latte's Readathon Spring Fling Oween, it's called. That's their little Readathon that they're doing. They only have 3 prompts and it's only a week long, and I looked at their prompts. I'll talk more about their Readathon and how it fits into this when I do my own TBR, which will come in like a week or two, but just know that you can make it very easy so that you make your TBR work for this and for that, because I know some of you watch Gabby Reads and I know some of you watch Olivia Reads a Latte, so if you are torn, you don't have to choose. You can do both, bitch. I'm calling you bitch in a nice way, not in a mean way. I just say bitch, it's a thing I do. I don't know what's wrong with me. Alright, so without further ado, guys, I don't know if you're ready, but I'm ready. Let's get into the prompts. And in honor of going into the prompts, let's do a little 90s karaoke, some Kelsi karaoke to be specific. Zoom, 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 you make my heart go boom, boom, my super nostalgic buds. Whatever. Of course, I'm spoofing Xenon Girl of the 21st Century, and that is thematic, and you'll see why as I go through all these prompts. And again, I am making graphics for both my Readathon prompts and my Watch-A-Thon prompts. You can choose to do both, or one or the other. It does not matter. As I go through these prompts, I will first reveal the Readathon prompt, and then I will say the Watch-A-Thon prompt. Most cases, they're related. They go together, the Readathon prompt and the Watch-A-Thon prompt, so that it's all very thematic and will work together very well if you choose to do both. And the first prompt, we can't talk 90s and talk books without talking about Goosebumps. So the first prompt for the Readathon part of my little extravaganza is read a Goosebumps book, and that is any Goosebumps book. So guys, literally, like, there's 1,000 billion zillion options, literally not a billion zillion, but there are a lot of options of Goosebumps books that were released in 2002 or earlier. That is the only criteria. Again, almost every book you read for my Readathon, just please make it 2002 or earlier, but there is one exception, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, so for the Goosebumps books, I mean, I've personally read recently Welcome to Dead House, loved it, Monster Blood, One Day at Horrorland, The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, The Horror at Camp Jelly Jam, that was badass, Welcome to Camp Nightmare. There are so many amazing Goosebumps. I know my friend Cameron Chaney would definitely recommend The Haunted Mask, and I may or may not be reading that one. We'll have to see. You guys will have to wait and see until I release my TBR video in a few weeks. But yes, there are so many options. Deep Trouble is another one that I read for summertime last year with my friend Nathaniel Toll. We had a little shark marathon, and well, I read like a shark book. We both read Jaws as well. Jaws 2, to be specific. Yeah. It wasn't the greatest, but it was still fun, the book itself. Alright, so to go along with reading your Goosebumps book, for my Watch-A-Thon prompt, the first prompt is, watch any Goosebumps episode, and of course I'm referring to the 90s TV show Goosebumps, which, by the way, you could find all the episodes and the specials on Netflix right now. And a lot of things, as I go through this, saying different things about the Watch-A-Thon, you can find a lot of things that you can rent on Amazon. However, it's free if you already have a Netflix subscription, so I always mention the free way first. I guess it's not technically free, because you pay to have a subscription, but a lot of you guys I know have Netflix. I know I do. So that's how I'll be watching my Goosebumps episode when I pick mine out. Alright, so that's the first prompt for the Readathon and the Watch-A-Thon! I'm already jazzed. And again, guys, there is adult prompts in here, so it's not all YA and middle grade stuff when I'm going through these prompts. So just stay tuned. Hold your horses. And if you don't want to do any middle grade reading or any old school YA reading, you do not have to. As I said, you can ignore prompts and you could do all the prompts, or you could do just a few of the prompts. I have a little bingo chart and you could pick and choose. It does not matter. There is a way you could easily get 3 in a row and just do adult reading if you're going for like a bingo type of deal or a tic-tac-toe type of deal where you want to get things in a row on the little chart. There's a way to do that without reading any middle grade or any YA. So it's very flexible again, and that is the beauty, and that is why I designed it that way. I'm a mad scientist, baby. I'm sorry. I'm like, guys don't even know. I've been planning this video for like 3 weeks right now. And this whole Readathon, I have had this idea for months, and I've been like intensely planning this for weeks. So that is why I'm so flippin' jazzed and over the moon and over the top. I know I'm being over the top, but it's just because I am so excited. In terms of recommending you guys Goosebumps episodes, I mean, my #1 recommendation is always The Haunted Mask, because it's a great freaking, I think it's like a 2-parter, but they also released it as a VHS, and I had the VHS growing up. I still have it at my parents' house, so yeah, that's always the one that I first think of when I think about Goosebumps, the show, because I had that VHS, and I freaking love that VHS. Alright. Are you guys ready? Prompt #2 for the Readathon and the Watch-A-Thon. First, Readathon. Read a horror book published in the 80s. That should be pretty easy, guys. Literally almost any paperback from hell type of book should work for this. A lot of paperbacks from hell, in quotes, they were released in the 80s. That's kind of like the defining thing, is that these paperbacks were very eye-catching and very unique, and horror was really booming in the 80s, hence why there are a lot of Paperbacks from Hell books that were released in the 80s, or books we now consider Paperbacks from Hell. I will give you some examples. Alright, you could choose to read Ritual, aka Feast by Graham Masterton. I believe this, 1988, I'm just guessing, I think, if I remember correctly. Yes, 1988, good memory for a second, Kelsi. This one I've recommended for our book club read, but if you have other suggestions, there's still time for you guys to suggest things. I've got a post up on my community tab. Make your voices heard, because there's not too many people shouting things out. You know, I know my friend Ashley shouted out a book, but nobody else has suggested anything. Mostly people are seconding my books, which is fine. This is one of my official suggestions, is Ritual/Feast. It is available in a Kindle edition, so you can find it digitally as a new edition. You don't have to go searching for an old copy like I have here. So yeah, it'll all work out. If you want to second this again, let me know in that post or in the comments below. Some other suggestions of 80s horror books: Moonbane by Al Sarantonio. That should be a lot of fun if anyone wants to read that. The Breeze Horror. Book to Die by John Dunning. This is more of like a mystery type of thing, but I definitely want to read this one day. I think this could be cool. Deliver Us from Evil. Gilded Needles by Michael Mcdowell. There are plenty of Mcdowell books, by the way, published in the 80s. Also, Graham Masterton, not just Feast/Ritual, tons of Masterton books released and published in the 80s. Other authors that you could try if you wanted to: William W. Johnstone, Clive Barker, of course Stephen King. You could find tons of Stephen King books from the 80s if you want to go that direction. Bernard Taylor. There's literally limitless possibilities, and that's what makes it so much fun. Whatevs. Alright, so the Watch-A-Thon prompt, number 2. Watch any 80s horror movie that you want. And this one's gonna be fun. There's so many options. God, I could go on forever, but here's just a quick few. Hellraiser, Poltergeist, Intruder, which is a very underrated, unique slasher, but it's corny and campy, but fun. Dolls, which is a movie I suggested. Guys, by the way, I do have a question up right now in that same post on the community tab asking if you guys want to have a group watch where we have a live stream discussion about a movie. So we all watch the movie separately, we come together and have a live stream discussion. Dolls was one of the movies I suggested for that. Also some other like 90s and 80s teen movies I suggested. More 80s movies though that you could watch: My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to Me, which I love, They Live, The Fly, The Thing, Scanners, The Stuff, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Fright Night, Funhouse, Prom Night, The Howling, Silver Bullet, Gremlins, Children of the Corn, The Fog, The Lost Boys, Sleepaway Camp, Prince of Darkness. You could go on and on. Alright, so that's prop number 2 for both the Readathon and the Watch-A-Thon. The thing they have in common: 80s horror. So read an 80s horror book, watch an 80s horror movie. You could do one, the other, or both. Prompt number 3. Read any book published by Nickelodeon, if you can find any. If you can't find any, because I know that's difficult, not all of you are collectors like I am. So if you can't find any Nickelodeon book, then how about you read a book that discusses old school Nickelodeon, or any horror book featuring goo, slime, ooze, or killer or evil toys. The reason I put that part in there is because toys remind me of Nickelodeon, old school Nickelodeon commercials, so why not have a book about killer toys? Again, there's so many options of horror books published in the 80s and 90s that are about killer toys. Toy Cemetery jumps in my mind right away, by William W. Johnstone. Toys that you don't know if they're evil or not, that would work perfectly, for sure. That's a good choice for that. Also, you know, stories featuring slime or goo, there's some choices there, and we'll talk more about that as I go. But another thing, if you can't find a book that fits any of those criteria that I've already listed, then you could just read another 90s book for this prompt. So just pick any 90s book, kid book, adult horror book, it doesn't matter. Any 90s book will do if you cannot find anything else that you want to fit this prompt. So literally so many different options. And let me give you an example of a book about Nickelodeon. So first thing that comes up are You Afraid of the Dark books. That's the first thing that pops into my mind recently because I've been really into trying to collect these. So there's a whole bunch. They are rare, so not everyone has them. But a few of you I know do have a few. Elizabeth Sagewood, I know you're out there. You may have some. I believe you do. I've seen you haul some. So yeah, here's quite a few. You could read any of those and that would count for this prompt. Another example of what would work, a different Nickelodeon novelization book that is based on a Nickelodeon show, so it's a Nickelodeon book. This one is a Kenan and Kel book, and this one's Kel Got Game. I still have to remove the sticker. It's been a while. Alright, and here we go. Here are books about old school 90s or Nickelodeon, and these would work. So there's plenty of Nickelodeon references in this book. This is Did I Do That? The best and worst of the 90s. And although this was published after 2002, this is a more recent book, it is about old school 90s and old school Nick is mentioned. So this would count for that. So if you want to read one non-old school book, but it's about old school things, that is okay. It works, it fits. Literally, these prompts are so loose, you can interpret them the way you want. That is why I am so excited about this, because I think you guys will be able to read anything you want to read and get really, really, really creative with it. Another one, this one was published in 2004. This is Nickelodeon Nation, and it is filled with really, really academic articles about Nickelodeon in the 90s and why it was successful and the history of Nickelodeon and the formation of the channel in general. And, you know, why they took the approach to kids' TV that they did. So this goes into all of that. I have read quite a bit of it. I haven't read the whole thing, but this is a freaking great book, and I do recommend it. But yes, so if you don't want to read a fictional book, read a non-fiction book, but it still fits the prompt because it's about 90s Nickelodeon. So yeah, you could do whatever. So for your Watch-A-Thon, if you want to participate in that and do the prompts, you can watch an episode of any Nickelodeon show or a Nickelodeon movie that you want. The only criteria is the episode or movie has to have been released in the 90s to fit this prompt. So here's some suggestions. You can watch the episode of Pete and Pete called Halloweeny, and that would be very thematic if you want to celebrate halfway to Halloween. If you want to kind of tilt your reading and watching to celebrate that at the same time as doing my readathon, you can do it. There are ways to do that. So Halloweeny is a wonderful episode of Pete and Pete. Specifically, I should say the full name of the show. I'm so used to calling it Pete and Pete. The Adventures of Pete and Pete. It would work, and it's a marvelous episode. It's one of my favorites. If you want to watch some old school Rugrats, there's Reptar on Ice or Toy Palace. And I'm also going to be releasing in the next few weeks a top 5 episode countdown list of favorite, creepiest, and scariest Rugrats episodes. So the episodes of Rugrats that I think are the creepiest or spookiest. Now, it doesn't get too scary. It's not like really frightening episodes, but there are episodes of Rugrats with a spooky flair. So if you want more suggestions from me, stay tuned to my channel, hit that bell so you don't miss the video, which will be a whole long list of suggestions. I have 5 for my top 5, but I also have a list of honorable mentions that are spooky-ish or creepy-ish. So if you're wanting to go the Rugrats route, you can. And yes, just like I said, keep an eye out for that video. I've done all the research, so I'm ready to film it. I just have to sit down and film it, essentially, and then edit it. Alright, so again, there's so many possibilities. Obviously, you could watch Good Burger, or you could watch Harriet the Spy. Great 90s Nickelodeon movies. I loved those growing up, and I had them on VHS. So yeah, those would work. Also, I mean, hell, you could just go down the list of Nickelodeon shows, Kenan and Kel, all that. If you want to watch game shows, you could do that too. If you want to watch frickin' Double Dare, go ahead. If you want to watch Guts, yeah. Legends of the Hidden Temple, frickin' yes. Knock your socks off, do it. If you want to frickin' watch an underrated 90s game show that I don't think enough people talk about, Wild and Crazy Kids, yeah, that was my jam back in the day. I loved that show. But yeah, of course, there are many, many options for live action. Salute Your Shorts. We've got Real Monsters, which would be spooky, and you could find tons of episodes that would work to celebrate halfway to Halloween with that show specifically. Angry Beavers. I mean, I could go on forever, so I'm not going to. Alright, so those are some suggestions. Let's go on to prompt number 4. So prompt number 4, the basic theme for both the Readathon and Watchathon prompt for this is all surrounding Are You Afraid of the Dark? So the Readathon prompt is read an Are You Afraid of the Dark book. As I said earlier, these are rare. Not everyone has these. So I have a secondary solution if you do not have Are You Afraid of the Dark book. Well, then you could also read any book that fits a theme of an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. And I've got examples. If you guys are saying, what does that mean, Kelsi? What do you mean read a book that fits the vibe of an episode? Well, I have suggestions for you guys. And also, these would be my suggestions for some episodes to watch too. So just before we get into the examples, my Watch-A-Thon prompt for prompt number 4 is watch any episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? So yeah, that is, it goes hand in hand, as you can see, the Readathon and the Watch-A-Thon prompt. And here are examples of books and episodes. So you could watch The Tale of Laughing in the Dark, and you could pair it with a book featuring clowns. There are so many that would work. I mean, hell, I just read a Ruby Jean Jensen book from the 80s called House of Illusions, which would work for this. It does feature clowns, and you could pair it with The Tale of Laughing in the Dark, as I said. So you don't have to watch the episode and read the book, but it's just ideas of this would be your book choice that would fit an episode theme. And you could choose to watch that episode that goes with it, a different episode, or if you don't want to do the Watch-A-Thon, then don't watch any episodes. It doesn't matter. Another suggestion, there's an episode called The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner, which has to do with this comic book character that kind of comes to life. You could pair that episode with the book The Cartoonist, or any book about stories that people write coming alive, or coming to pass, or things people write are coming true. Something like that would work. There's a Freer Street book like that. There is a Goosebumps book having to do with books. So any of that would work. There's also The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter. Along the same lines, you could pair that with a book about books. Literally Book of the Damned by D.A. Fowler, which we'll talk about in a second. There's plenty of books that would fit this too. There's even Goosebump books that would fit that theme. Alright, another suggestion, The Tale of the Dead Man's Float, which is one of my favorite episodes. That could be paired with a horror book that has to do with lakes or pools, or literally any adult horror book to do with water. And again, that would be so easy. You would just have to Google it a little bit and you could find something that would work. And guess what, guys? There's even a book called Dead Man's Float. And yes, this is an old school horror paperback, so this would work as well if you're a collector and happen to have this. So yeah, that could work too. You could literally do anything. There's so many options. Alright, here's some more suggestions in case you guys are still like, I don't want to do any of these. Well, if you really are into celebrating halfway to Halloween, then you could watch The Tale of the Twisted Claw, which is a Halloween set Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, and you could also pair it with a Halloween-themed old school book from the 80s, 90s, or whatever decade you'd like to read from. So again, these books that you choose that fit the theme of an episode could be from the 70s even. You could even go earlier than 80s and 90s. More examples, The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors, and some other ones like The Tale of Midnight Madness. You could do vampire books for those, and also The Tale of the Pinball Wizard. You could pair it with an old school horror book featuring arcades or malls. Hey, here's a suggestion right now, The Mall by Richie Tankersley Cusick. You could read that one. Also, here's one of the weirdest Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, The Tale of the 13th Floor. Pair it with a book that has 13 in the title. It is so easy to try to, you know, twist the prompt to work for you. To mention the episode The Tale of the Midnight Madness again, I think that's a great episode, one of my favorites. You could pair that episode, you could read a book about movie theaters or vampires, like I said. And if you can't get enough Nickelodeon, if like my suggestions and ideas and my nostalgia for the month of April is not enough, and you really want more, I do want to take this second to promote Big Orange Couch, my favorite, wonderful, marvelous 90s Nickelodeon podcast. They are incredible, and I actually have a list of my favorite Big Orange Couch episodes. If you are unfamiliar with their podcast and you want to know where to start because they've got over like 200 episodes now, I am going to link that list. It's a Google Doc. I'll link it down below so you guys can find my favorite episodes of their podcast. I haven't listened in a while. I did listen to one of their more recent episodes in the last week or so, but before that, it's been a while because I've been reading so much, I haven't been able to listen to any podcasts. It's not them. But let me just kind of give you a little more information about Big Orange Couch. The cool thing is, so if you're also wanting to know more about Are You Afraid of the Dark books, and you didn't know much about them, the Big Orange Couch podcast has a few episodes where they read a few books, Are You Afraid of the Dark books specifically, and they had a discussion about it. So they read The Tale of the Restless House, they read The Tale of the Shimmering Shell, and they read The Tale of the Sinister Statues. And they had an episode about each one, and they talked about it. And those are book club episodes. It's called, like, Big Orange Couch Book Club. So, in general, Big Orange Couch does year-in-review episodes, so they have all kinds of different, it's not just one type of episode that they do, they have all these different kinds of episodes that they release, but the theme that ties them all together is that all the episodes talk about 90s Nickelodeon, essentially. So, like I said, year in review, where they discuss all kinds of things that happened in each individual year of the 90s. So they'll have 1990, year in review, 1991, year in review, where they talk about not just 90s Nickelodeon, but music that was popular, or video games that were popular, or anything pop culture related that was popular in that year. They also have interviews with actual people who worked in 90s Nickelodeon in that hemisphere. They have interviews with DJ Mcdowell. They have David Martell, Danny Tamborelli, who I love. That's Little Pete. So yes, they have over, like I said, 200 episodes, specifically over 220 episodes right now at this point. All of the episodes are of the highest quality, and they use sound clips from episodes. So if you're just like, oh, I don't want to hear people talk about it, well, you get to hear clips from the actual episodes that they're talking about. And they have episodes that are about, like, the bumpers, like the commercial bumpers in between. They have episodes about the live action game shows. They've got episodes where they literally have a versus episode where they pit two things against each other, and there's a judge, and they have to argue for the judge. You know, one person argues, like, let's say there's an episode I love called Keenan versus Kel, where one host argues for Keenan and why he's better than Kel, and the other host argues for the opposite. And so it's so much fun. They have a third person who determines who had the better argument and who wins. So that's their versus episodes, and they have a whole bunch like that. They also have a write their own episode where they literally write their own episode of all kinds of different shows. So there's like a write your own Rocco, write your own Thanksgiving episode, where they all pick different episodes that are Thanksgiving themed to write. Like, they create their own in the frickin' 90s Nickelodeon vein. It's so much fun. They also have special guests, like their friends come on. Melissa, Max, who I love their episodes where they guest on. They also have episodes where listeners call in and give their favorite things from the 90s and their opinions. So it's just really well done. They've got stuff about frickin' Nick at Night. They've got animated versus live action. That's one of my favorite versus episodes. Again, I have my whole list of favorite episodes of their podcast listed below. So if you want to find out more, check that out. And thank you for letting me do that sidebar. If you're really into 90s Nickelodeon, I think you would love that podcast, hands down. Like, the production quality is, like, freaking top notch. There's nothing better. Moving on now to prompt number 5. And this one's pretty easy. And the Readathon Prompt and Watch-A-Thon Prompt, like most of these, go together. So for the Readathon Prompt, it's a mood read. You could literally read anything you want from the 80s, 90s, or even before, so 70s. Literally anything as long as it's 2002 or earlier. And for the Watch-A-Thon Prompt, it's a mood watch, so you could watch anything you want. You could have it be adult-themed or kid-themed. It doesn't matter, as long as it's 2002 or before. Prompt number 6, read a Fear Street book, or any point horror book, or any Christopher Pike book. To me, those are very nostalgic books, any of those 3 things. So all of those work very well for this old school April and an old school vibe. Again, if you don't like old school YA, just ignore this prompt. Do something else. Do other prompts. You could figure it out for yourself. I've got some suggestions, but let me tell you what the Watch-A-Thon prompt is first. So the Watch-A-Thon prompt for this, prompt number 6, is watch an episode of any Disney Channel show or a Disney Channel original movie from the 90s or early 2000s. Again, 2002 or earlier. That's the only criteria. Some recommendations for books. Again, you can't go wrong. Any Fear Street book, any freaking point horror book, there are so many, and any Christopher Pike book. I specifically read Monster. I've read 2 Christopher Pike books, Monster and Slumber Party. Monster was my favorite, and I would totally recommend it. It's a good book for sure. And it could fit in this readathon in many ways. So yes, you can't go wrong with any of those things. I don't even have specific suggestions because I think you can't go wrong with any of the books of any of those. Now, there are some that are better than others, but again, it's really up to you. But let's talk about, quickly, recommendations for the Watch-A-Thon, because this is where I'm a super big expert. I didn't read a lot of Fear Street and Point Horror growing up. I wish I had. I just wasn't a big reader. However, I was obsessed with Disney Channel and Disney Channel original movies, and so that means I have some suggestions for you. So in terms of shows and stuff, you could watch So Weird, which is totally spooky themed. So if you want to do halfway to Halloween, you're trying to stay in the spooky vibe, then I would definitely check out So Weird. It is like a adolescent version of X-Files, and it is wonderful, but I would specifically suggest the episodes with the character Fee. Later on, they replace her with the character named Annie, and I don't think those episodes are as good. Alright, so also you could watch episodes of the show Smart Guy, Brotherly Love, with the Lawrence brothers. That show was awesome. You might be able to find these, I don't know where, but sometimes maybe, you know, Disney Plus would have some of this. Maybe not. You could look on YouTube. There's The Famous Jet Jackson. There's Totally Circus, which was like a reality show for kids having to do with the circus. So if you want to do a whole theme with your Readathon and Watchathon, say you want to read all circus books or carnival clown books and still do the prompts, you could do that. There's a way to work it out. I have some examples later. But also, again, you could watch Totally Circus and that would fit for that prompt for your Watch-A-Thon segment of it. So yeah, Totally Circus was a really weird reality show for kids where they had these tryouts for people who would go to this like camp where you learned how to be in a circus. It was cool. I watched it. It was cool. And I don't like reality TV now, but I loved that show then. And speaking of another reality show on Disney Channel, Bug Juice. Bug Juice, it doesn't come in a jar. Bug Juice comes from who you are. And if you wanted to do a whole like slime theme, say you wanted to do all of your reads and all of your watches having to do with slime, goo, ooze, whatever, that could fit in just because of the name. So sometimes it doesn't even have to be what the thing is about. It could be like the title of the book or show or movie that fits in with the prompt if you really want. Again, be as loose as you want. That's fine. But yeah, Bug Juice. It doesn't come in a jar. It comes from who you are. Bug Juice. True life adventures. Bug Juice. Real kids. Making friends. Having fun. Oh, Bug Juice. Alright, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No one likes Kelsi karaoke. Not even me. But it's such a catchy song from back in the day. I'm gonna be saving that, though, for summertime. I might watch a few episodes. I did actually rewatch the show. It was on YouTube. I rewatched it, like, it had to be 10 years ago. I don't know. So 10 years ago, I would have been 23, mid-20s. Yeah, I watched it. I do remember that. There's this one episode where a kid gets kicked out for some mysterious thing, but, like, I had an inkling that it was drugs, but I didn't know because they were being all secretive about why the girl, I think it was a girl, who got kicked out, why she got kicked out. We didn't know. But anyway, as a kid, we were all like, oh my god, she got kicked out. Anyway, you could watch Bug Juice. That would count. But also, here's the big thing. Like I said, you could watch frickin' Disney Channel original movies. So if you wanted to do something where you honored halfway to Halloween, then there are spooky themed Disney Channel original movies that would be perfect for this. Some examples: Under Wraps. Yes, the old Under Wraps, not the new Under Wraps, the old one, which is amazing. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite DComs ever. Don't Look Under the Bed is a spooky themed one. Halloween Town, of course. How could you go wrong with Halloween Town? I mean, don't even get me started. I rewatched it last year. So good. Flippin' so good. Alright, and before I give you a whole list of DComs from 2002 or earlier, I do want to say that you could also watch Disney Channel concerts, because that is how I found out I loved NSYNC. Frickin' NSYNC, baby! No strings attached. Doom, 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 doom. And, okay, I was listening to 90s jams and 80s jams before I filmed this video to get into the mindset of the old school stuff. And I know there's actual good music from the 90s and 80s, but I was listening to old school 90s pop, which is what I would have listened to as a kid back then in actual real time, because I was pretty young. I was born in 89, so that gives you a hint right there. I was in my little kid years in the 90s, and so that's what I was listening to, was kid music. I still love NSYNC today. I'm not embarrassed to admit it at all. I freaking love it. And so yes, I have a playlist that I will link below on Spotify that is like old school jams, and most of it is 90s pop, which might you know, be considered trash by most, which is fine with me if you think that. I do think it's trashy too in a way, but I'm not going to apologize for loving it nonetheless. I also have some rap on there and some like early 2000s stuff. I have some great stuff too, like No Doubt, which is good. And then I have some ridiculous, like, electronic type of stuff from the CD Pulse. If you remember that collection of songs, which is like, you know, what's that song where it's like, you know, do. It's like the stupid, oh my god, Night at the Roxbury, that song. It's like from the Pulse CD. Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. I guess I'm not even like singing anything. I'm just like, yeah, the head behind. Like, you could tell what I'm talking about. I'm sure you know, but maybe you don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Alright, so yes, you could watch concerts if you want, and if you don't want to watch a concert but you want to see how bad my musical taste is from the 90s, you could check out my playlist, which I'm linking below. I'm also going to try to make a YouTube playlist of like cool 90s random clips and 80s clips, but I don't know if, like, you know, when I'll get there, if I will be able to get to it, but we'll see. If I end up making it, it'll be linked below, so just look down below for more things to get you in the nostalgic vibe and the thematic vibe of this whole thing. So DCOMs from 2002 or earlier. You could watch any of these and it would work. Cadet Kelly, Motocrossed, The Other Me, Stepsister from Planet Weird, The Color of Friendship, Horse Sense, Don't Look Under the Bed, Genius, Johnny Tsunami, Smart House, The 13th Year. By the way, The 13th Year is so bad and corny, but I do love it, but oh, it's so bad. Can of Worms, which I haven't seen and don't remember hardly at all. Halloween Town, Xenon Girl of the 21st Century, Zoom, 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 you make my heart go boom, boom, my supernova girl, girl, girl. I would lean towards that one. In fact, that's one of my suggestions. If you guys want to do a group watch, I suggested that, I suggested Teen Witch, and I suggested Dolls. So second any of those below, or go to the post, suggest your own, there or here, it doesn't matter. But yes, okay, so onwards, I don't want to obsess too much about Xenon. I'm sure we'll talk about it as April gets closer and during April itself. You know, so just one more quote though, I guess. I said I was gonna stop. I'm a liar. There's no gravity between us. Our love is automatic. And that's when the zoom, zoom, zoom happens. So whatever. That's so stupid. Alright. So, you could also watch Brink, which is a great Disney Channel original movie. You could watch You Lucky Dog, and again, just to mention it one more time, it's spooky themed Under Wraps. Those are the ones that are from 2002 and earlier. Alright, moving onwards. Prompt number 7. You could read a middle grade or YA read that was published in the 80s. Here are some examples. The Babysitter's Club books, some of them were released in the 80s. It ran through the 90s as well, but, you know, some early ones would count. Also, I mean, you could just read some early point horror. There's The Babysitter by R.L. Stine, The Fog by Caroline B. Cooney. Also, if you have any of these books, Twilight, a lot of them were released in the 80s. Plus, you could just keep researching, there are many more. I already have mine picked out, so I don't want to say too many more, because I might give away my own choice. And now for the Watch-A-Thon prompt. Watch an 80s family-friendly movie or show, or a teen-appropriate movie or television show episode. So here are some examples of 80s family-friendly movies and other movies that are kind of like fine, that you would have probably watched growing up in the 80s or early 90s. So here are 80s family-friendly movies. E.T., Ghostbusters, The Time Bandits, The Brave Little Toaster, which would be perfect for halfway to Halloween because there are some really, really creepy parts in The Brave Little Toaster. The Goonies, Princess Bride, Flight of the Navigator, Teen Witch. Again, I am suggesting that we could have that as our group watch and have a live stream discussion of Teen Witch. That's the one I'm hoping will win. I know my friend Benjamin is with me and he hopes that one will win too. My friend Kelly, she feels the same way. So yes, Teen Witch, I'm on team Teen Witch. And that is almost a tongue twister, but I got through it. So other suggestions, Uncle Buck with the great John Candy. You can't go wrong with that movie or rewatching that movie if you've already seen it. I've seen a lot of these, but I would rewatch them in a heartbeat. I can't wait to give my list of what I'm going to be watching and reading. It's going to be so much fun. The Never-Ending Story is a really dark movie, which would be perfect. You could make that fit for halfway to Halloween. It would still be thematic with this and with that. The Dark Crystal, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Secret of Nim, Beetlejuice, Return to Oz. Cameron, I got your favorite listed here, Return to Oz, that would totally work. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? The Adventures of Milo and Otis, that one's not creepy It's like this dog and cat, and like they have all these adventures. The Black Cauldron, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, The Great Mouse Detective, and that is a Disney movie, so yes, you can watch 80s Disney movies. Another 80s Disney movie you could watch, The Little Mermaid. Hell yeah, that's one of my favorites, and so is The Great Mouse Detective. Those two are like my really high up there, and Beauty and the Beast, which is a 90s one. We'll get there. Not Quite Human, that one's really good. It's like about like a kid who's actually a robot. He's actually a teenager, whatever. The Parent Trap 2, it's a sequel, and yes, Hayley Mills is in it. She's older, of course. 16 Candles, we're talking about John Hughes movies, which are technically adult movies, but I feel like they're teenage appropriate movies, and I think, you know, kids around 12, 13, 14 would have probably seen these movies. So again, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, those are all John Hughes, and those would all work. Labyrinth would work. Willow, if you want to go like the more fantasy route, it doesn't matter what kind of movie you choose. The Land Before Time is a great animated film from that era. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, a ridiculous comedy. You could literally do whatever. Really, any 80s movie would work. I'm just kind of making it more family-friendly because it matches the YA middle grade prompt a little bit by doing that. Examples of shows, Star Trek TNG, started in the late 80s. Pee-wee's Playhouse, oh my god, one of my favorite shows of all time. You know, Phil Hartman's in it, of course. I love him, R.I.P. Oh, so sad he's gone. If you want to go the cartoon route, The Real Ghostbusters. If you want to go a puppet route, Fraggle Rock. Reading Rainbow, if you want to still be book related, but it's a TV show, you could watch an episode of that. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Chip and Dale when there's danger. Alright, anyway. So bad. So bad. That ran through the 80s into the 90s. Garfield and Friends, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, DuckTales, it would all work. And don't get me started, I'm going to start singing the DuckTales theme song. It's going to be bad. I'm not going to. I'm going to refrain from doing it. I'm going to spare you guys. I'm so sorry. Alright, so that is all of the suggestions I have for prompt number 7, both book and movie and show. Prompt number 8. Read any horror book published in the 90s, and if you guys want, you can read YA horror. It doesn't have to be adult horror, or you could go the adult route. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. So before I give examples, let's also talk about the Watch-A-Thon prompt, and that is watch a 90s horror movie. Any 90s horror movie. So again, you could see how that goes with the prompt, the Readathon prompt. They go hand in hand. So here are some examples. Off the top of my head, I can think of a few authors who published a lot of books in the 90s. Richard Lehman specifically, lots of 90s published books. D.A. Fowler, lots of books published in the 90s. And also Ruby Jean Jensen, she published a ton of books in the 90s as well. So those are adult horror books you could check out by any of those authors, and that would work. Okay, so for some examples of other 90s horror books you could read, Book of the Damned. I mentioned D.A. Fowler. Yeah, she had quite a few books. I mean, not quite a few books published in the 90s, and this is one of them, Book of the Damned. That would work. I suggested that we could possibly have this as our club read, if you guys wanted. If you want to second that, comment that below or on the post, but I'm going to be reading this either way, and that is a spoiler to my TBR, but oh well. I'm going to be buddy reading this either way with my friend Alex, the Bookubus. I will link her channel below. She is marvelous, she is wonderful, and I am so excited to read this with her, because I really think of her as the queen of old school horror and the queen of vintage horror in general. She just has read so many wonderful books, and I'm so happy she hasn't read this yet so that we could read it together, and that's gonna be so much fun. Other suggestions of books that were published in the 90s, Prodigal by Melanie Tem, The Cipher by Kathy Koja. Of course, that's hard without to get it without the glare, so there you go. This is my reading copy. It's bad. I don't like that it's bent and freaking terrible looking, but it's a very rare book, so what can you do? Alright, so some examples of horror movies that you could watch that were released in the 90s. Jacob's Ladder, one of my favorite horror movies, and it's really more of a drama too. I think it's both though. It's a drama for sure, but it also has definite horrific elements to it. So that's one of my favorites of all time, and I totally recommend that movie if you have not seen it. Event Horizon you could watch. Of course, you could watch the made-for-TV miniseries, or movie if you want to call it, It. You could watch Kronos, Candyman, which is a favorite of mine as well, Silence of the Lambs, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Misery, the movie, of course, Arachnophobia, Seven, Ice Cream Man, which I have not watched, but I saw it suggested somewhere, and I said, that one sounds interesting. The People Under the Stairs, which I just rewatched recently. It's a wonderful movie. If you like dark humor, that was really awesome. I really enjoyed rewatching it. And TV, if you want like a spooky TV episode that you want to watch, you could watch any episode of Twin Peaks, which would fit in here fine. And to me, there's a horror element in Twin Peaks for sure. So for some reason, it's got like this weird vibe that's like horrific. So I would even count that. You could use that for the prompt if you want. The X-Files, if you want to watch an episode of that, I feel like the same way. I haven't watched a lot of the X-Files, but I do feel like there's like a spooky vibe to it that would fit in with this prompt. Okay, so those are all of my examples for that prompt, and here we come to our final prompt. I know this has been long-winded, but I'm so pumped, and there's so many details and so many suggestions, and I have more suggestions at the very end after we go through all the prompts. So stay tuned. Alright, so here is the last prompt, the Readathon prompt specifically. Read a middle grade or YA book that was published in the 90s. So there's plenty of examples, but first, the Watch-A-Thon prompt. For prompt number 9, watch a 90s family-friendly or teen-appropriate movie or TV show. So let's go through the examples now. So for 90s middle grade, there are so many options. If you want to read more Goosebumps, pick up a Goosebumps and it would work, and it would be appropriate for this prompt. Bone Chillers, that would work. Shivers, that would work. Spine Tinglers, that would also work. 90s middle grade, awesome. If you want to get a Disney novelization, here is D2, the novelization, that would work. Apple paperbacks, there are plenty to choose from. Scared Stiff, that would work. Plenty of Boxcar Children books would work for your middle grade choice if you wanted to go that direction. If you want to go the young adult direction, you could pick more Christopher Pike, you could pick more Fear Street, you could pick more point horror, and most likely it would fit into this 90s themed prompt. Any of that would work. There's so many options. And more examples of like, you know, teenage appropriate books or any kind of 90s like general books you could read. There are plenty of Star Trek The Next Generation novelizations, Buffy novels, Sabrina the Teenage Witch novels, and another suggestion if you want to kind of make it spooky and not just kind of do generic YA, you could do a slasher YA like this one, the Friday the 13th book, Jason's Curse. This is the second book in the series. These are super rare. Not a lot of you guys will have this, but I have a solution, which I learned from Mr. Cameron Chaney. I will link his channel below, Library Macabre, of course. So I learned from him that you could actually listen to these books on audiobook by going to this YouTube channel, and I actually listened to a few minutes of one. So the audiobooks are on the Slash Tracks network with 80s Slasher Librarian. Again, that's on YouTube. I will link that channel below. So if you do not have the physical book, it doesn't matter. You can listen to it on YouTube. Okay, and bear with me here because I've got a very long list of movie examples and TV show examples, so I'm going to try to go through it rather quickly. Beauty and the Beast. Again, you can do Disney, like I said, so that also brings you to Lion King, Hunchback of Notre Dame, literally any 90s Disney movie that you'd like to rewatch. Mrs. Doubtfire. Not exactly a family movie, but I do think it's a fun movie and a movie that, as a kid, I watched, so it wasn't, like, inappropriate. I still watched it. Mighty Ducks, Space Jam, The Sandlot, Cool Runnings, Blank Check, Dennis the Menace, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, The Page Master, A Goofy Movie, Heavyweights, Babe, Home Alone, Free Willy, Jingle All the Way, Hook, Jumanji, Matilda, My Girl, Good Burger, Fern Gully, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie, Star Kid, Homeward Bound, George of the Jungle, Muppet Treasure Island, Indian in the Cupboard, Jungle to Jungle, Flubber, Once Upon a Forest, Fly Away Home, underrated movie, love that movie, great movie, really well acted, not like a kid's movie, a really wonderful 90s drama that happens to star a kid in it. Rock-a-Doodle, which is a Don Bluth animated movie. It Takes Two, The Parent Trap, The Rugrats movie, Harriet the Spy, Little Giants, Pebble and the Penguin, The Parent Trap, the remake, of course, with Lindsay Lohan. Any of the 90s DComs that I referenced, Susie Q, Wish Upon a Star, The Paper Brigade, The Princess and the Goblin, My Date with the President's Daughter, H.E. Double Hockey Sticks, The Iron Giant, Kazam, First Kid, A Kid in King Arthur's Court, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, and if you want to get spooky with it for halfway to Halloween, some movie suggestions, The Witches, The Halloween Tree, Nightmare Before Christmas, Ernest Scared Stupid, James and the Giant Peach, Casper, Double Double Toil and Trouble, of course with the Olsen twins, and of course, Hocus Pocus. Here are some examples of shows, like family-friendly types of shows, or teenage shows. So any of the 90s Nickelodeon shows I talked about, any Disney Channel shows from the 90s, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Dinosaurs, Boy Meets World, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Gargoyles, which was a favorite show of mine, Tiny Toon Adventures, Dexter's Lab, Animaniacs, Bobby's World, The Magic School Bus, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, Tailspin, Captain Planet, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which did start in the late 90s, Erie, Indiana. As I mentioned earlier, the Disney Channel show Smart Guy, Dawson's Creek, started in the 90s, it would fit. So yeah, any of those would work. Alright guys, so that was all 9 prompts, and 9 prompts work really well with my little bingo graphic. You could easily get 3 in a row, a whole bunch of different ways if you want, and you could kind of form your TBR however you want to using that graphic or not at all. Don't use the prompts if you don't want to, as I said. So guys, you could be random with your choices. You could have choices with books about snowmen or mummies, or you could mix it all up, is what I'm saying. You could have tons of random books that don't have anything in common, or you could make your entire Readathon and Watchathon TBR and TBW theme one theme, and it would still fit the prompts. Or, like I said, you could freestyle it. But here are some themes that you could try if you wanted to do a whole thematic theme for your entire TBR and TBW. You could do a space theme. You could do a sports theme. You could do a vampire theme and read, like, all your books could be vampire themed, and all your shows and movies could be vampire themed. It's easy. I've kind of even done a few. I've got examples. You could do a werewolf theme. You could do snow monsters. You could do a slasher theme. You could do a ghost or haunted house theme. You could do a Halloween theme. As I said, you could make your whole TBR halfway to Halloween related. Or you could do your whole watch list halfway to Halloween related. You could do a theme about technology, like computers and video games or VHS tapes. Here are some more examples of themes. You could literally do a theme for books about books, stories, or libraries. And you could do a watch-a-thon list about movies or shows about books, stories, or libraries. Here are some examples, by the way, of books about books that would fit in with the prompts. The Thrill Club, which is about stories coming to pass. A Spine Tinglers, Check It Out and Die. An Are You Afraid of the Dark book that is about a diary, The Tale of the Deadly Diary. And I have more here. So if you wanted to do a show about a story that comes to life, The Blob That Ate Everyone would be your show for your Goosebumps prompt. For a book, like I said, a Goosebumps book, Diary of a Mad Mummy would work. For an 80s horror movie, you could watch It, because there's lots of scenes in the library. You could also watch Ghostbusters because there's that iconic scene in the library as well at the beginning. You could read Misery, the book, because the guy in the book is writing a book. Or for another book choice, you could read Book of the Dead by John Tiggs, which was released in 1989. So that would be your 80s horror prompt. You could do that. For your Nickelodeon show prompt, you could watch The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter, and you could read that Are You Afraid of the Dark book that I referenced, The Tale of the Deadly Diary. And you could double dip it with the Are You Afraid of the Dark prompt, The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. It's about a comic book character that comes to life, so that counts. A comic book is like got writing in it, so that counts. As I said, The Tale of the Deadly Diary to re-emphasize that. You can find more 90s books about books and diaries and libraries, and I've got more mentioned as we go on for examples. For your mood watch or read, you could watch The Princess Bride, because of course the grandpa is reading a book to his grandson. You could also read for your mood watch Book to Die by John Dunning, which I showed earlier. For your Disney Channel original movie or Disney Channel show, I actually don't have one picked out for this, but there are plenty you could probably find that would work, or you could omit this prompt for that. For Fear Street, as I said, The Thrill Club would work. 80s family-friendly movie, The Never-Ending Story. And you could also read Matilda by Roald Dahl, which was released in the 80s. For your 90s horror, which would be a movie and a book, you could watch In the Mouth of Madness, which I love that movie. And you could also read Book of the Damned, which I mentioned, by D.A. Fowler, that was released in the 90s. For your 90s family-friendly or teenage themed thing. You could watch The Page Master for your family-friendly movie, or you could watch Matilda, and you could read Overdue by Richie Tankersley Cusick, which takes place in a library. Another theme you could do is you could have a theme of witches, magic, magical items, fortune-telling, with your whole Readathon TBR and your Watch-A-Thon watch list. You could read Be Careful What You Wish For, you could read Sight Unseen by Andrew Niederman, you could read any Nick book like The Tale of the Souvenir Shop. Another one is The Tale of the Curious Cat, because I associate black cats with witches and stuff. For your mood read, you could read The Witches by Roald Dahl. You could read Witch by Christopher Pike. You could read 13 Means Magic, which is an 80s middle grade book. You could read Witches by Catherine Meyer Griffith. You can read Witch Hunt by Wendy Corsi Staub, or a Sabrina novelization. So there's so many choices for books about magic and stuff. Here's a really beat up Goosebumps of Bad Hair Day. As you can see, there's magical items like from a magician right here on the cover. You could read The Mystic Spell, which is a Shivers book. You could read Mirror Mirror, which is a Dead Time Stories, one of the few I own. I think I only own 2. As I said, Be Careful What You Wish For has a touch of magic in it. Also, Magical Object, Say Cheese and Die, a magical camera, fortune telling, Sight Unseen. At least the cover fits. I doubt anything that is represented on the cover is actually talked about in the book, but still. If we go by the cover, I have not read it, but the cover fits for the magical fortune-telling theme. Like I told you guys, these two Are You for the Dark books should have to do with magic in some way, and this one probably doesn't, but hey, it's a black cat, and that is thematic. Again, you could be as loose as you want. As I mentioned, The Witches. Another book called The Witches, but it's an adult horror book instead. And as I mentioned, Witch Hunt. For Watch-A-Thon examples for that, like I said, watch the episode of Goosebumps, Say Cheese and Die, a magical object. For 80s horror, Ghoulies, which is about a warlock guy. Nickelodeon shows there are so many Are You for the Dark episodes with magical objects. In fact, my favorite podcast that I mentioned, Big Orange Couch, literally has an episode out right now that is about their favorite Are You for the Dark magical objects. So you could listen to that episode of their podcast and watch an episode that corresponds with what they talked about in that podcast episode. So for your Are You for the Dark episode, like I said, a specific example, The Tale of the Magician's Assistant would be good. Your mood watch, you could watch Troll 2 because there is magic there. Also, there's like this witch lady with popcorn and corn. It's very weird. Anyway, or you could watch Double Double Toil and Trouble, the Olsen twin movie that I mentioned earlier. For your DCOM, you could watch Halloween Town, which is about witches. For your 80s family friendly, you could watch Teen Witch, or The Black Cauldron, or Return to Oz, or Willow, or The Worst Witch with Tim Curry. I believe that's from the 80s, if I'm right. 90s horror, you could watch The Craft, or The Blair Witch Project, or Wishmaster. For your 90s family friendly, you could watch The Witches, or Hocus Pocus, or an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. There's so many things you could do if you wanted to do a whole magical theme, not just witches, but magic, magical objects, whatever, you could make it work. Alright, so another example of a theme you could do a whole theme about clowns, dolls, toys that come to life or that are evil or whatever. So here are some examples of that. You know, an episode of Rugrats that is thematic to toys. There's Toy Palace, or Toys in the Attic, or the episode The Mysterious Mr. Fiend, which is about this clown doll that's very, very creepy. For your books, you could do Toys in the Attic by Daniel Ransom, which is from 1986. That was when it was published. Disney, you could watch Toy Story. Now, that is a Disney movie, not really a Disney Channel original movie or show, but that is stretching the prompt, and that is okay. For your book, April Fools by Richie Tankersley Cusick has a doll on the cover, by the way. Episodes of Are You for the Dark, or Nickelodeon, The Tale of the Doll Maker, or the episode, I forgot what it's called, of course, with that clown doll that is really creepy. For your book, you could do for Goosebumps Monster Blood, because that technically is a toy. The episode, you could watch the same episode, or you could read Give Yourself Goosebumps, Toy Terror, Batteries Included, or, of course, Night of the Living Dummy, which is about a toy that comes to life. For your 80s family-friendly watch, or YA middle grade read, you could watch Babes in Toyland, or Poltergeist, Poltergeist is a horror movie, but I think it is somewhat, I watched it when I was young, so it's like family friendly in my opinion, whatever. For your book, The Dollhouse Murders by Betty Wren Wright, that would work for your middle grade type of read. 80s horror movie, you could watch Dolls, Child's Play, Puppet Master. For an 80s book, you could read Toy Cemetery, as I mentioned earlier, by William W. Johnstone. For your 90s family movie, you could watch Toy Story, or Indian in the Cupboard, or to really be loose, Blank Check, because he gets a whole bunch of toys. They don't come to life, and it's not scary, but it's thematic to toys. There's a ton of toys in his house, and I love frickin' that scene where he's setting up all the toys and playing with them and stuff. For your books, for 90s YA or middle grade, you could read The Toy Shop of Terror, which is a choose-your-own-nightmare book. For your 90s horror movie, you could watch Demonic Toys from 1992, or The Amityville Dollhouse from 1996, and for your book, you could read Annabelle by RJJ. So here are some of the suggestions and examples. So Are You Afraid of the Dark? I didn't mention this one, but Computer, I think that is like a toy, a game. The Tale of the Virtual Nightmare could be one of your things. As I mentioned, Monster Blood would work. Look at my terrible copy. Oh my god, it's horrible. Another specific toy-related Are You for the Dark book, The Tale of the Terrible Toys. It's literally in the name, and this one would work very well for either the 90s prompt or the Are You for the Dark prompt. Then other things, I do consider a Ouija board a game. Hellboard you could read for your 90s horror choice. You could read Annabelle, like I said. Here's like a freaking awesome edition of it. Another thing, I don't know if this has anything to do with toys in the actual story, but the cover sure fits. This is Toyland by Florence Ramey. And yeah, those are some options for that theme. You could do a slime theme if you want. So here's like a slime book. Here's another slime book, Slime Time. This is a Bone Chillers. This is just it's a mutant point horror book, which would count as a normal, you could count it as a point horror book because it works. But yeah, you could read these if you wanted to try to do a slime theme and other things about slime. You got the Ooze, Ghosts of Fear Street. You've got Slime by William Essex. Slimer by Harry Adam Knight, or Slime by John Hulkin. Now, I know some of these aren't about slime, but they feature slime in the name, so I'm counting them. Like, for instance, Slime by Hulkin, that's actually about jellyfish. But still, the freaking name is slime, and so I'm saying that could count. Also, one of the movies you could watch is Flubber, and that would count as like goo or ooze or whatever. Anyway, you could make it work if you wanted to do a slime theme too, is my point. If you wanted to do a birthday theme, here's 2 birthday-themed books. I believe they're both from the 90s. Yes. Alright, you could do that. Or say you want to do like snow monsters or something. Yes, there's an Are You Afraid Dark book about a snow monster. Also, Beware the Snowman, which is hilarious. This was a great read. I laughed out loud while reading this. Specifically, one line made me laugh so hard. Also, flippin' another book you could read by the same author, The Snowman. So you could do a whole snow theme if you wanted. If you wanted to do a different type of holiday theme, you could kind of try to stack it around holidays you're reading. Trick or Treat, April Fools, whatever. Do whatever you want. Don't do a theme at all if you don't want. It doesn't matter. Here's another example of a Christopher Pike book. I have so many, but this is just one I pulled out that has an awesome cover. And this one would fit with, like, you know, VHS technology. If you wanted to do a theme about that, that's on the cover. So yes, you could do whatever you want. It's so flexible. I hope you guys like the idea. If you are planning to participate, please comment below and let me know. Make sure to share it on social media. I will have a folder of graphics that will be available. Just look below in the description. There will be a link to a folder of things you can use to craft your TBR. I will have a blank template of the graphics I showed you today that will have areas that you could put your TBR reads on, or your little movie posters if you're doing a watch list on. All of that will be available for you down below. And for social media, I tried to find a hashtag, and unfortunately, Old School April is already used. There's already people who have tagged, like, random dance videos with that tag. So whatever, we're not going to use that, but we can use Old School Readathon as a hashtag, so hashtag Old School Readathon if you want to promote your TBR, and if you want to promote your watch list, Old School Watchathon. So again, hashtag Old School Readathon, all one word, or hashtag Old School Watchathon. Both are free, and so if you're doing both, you'll have to use both hashtags. But yes, I'm making separate hashtags in case people are just doing one or the other and not both. So that is why there are 2. Use those as far as I know, there is no one else using those tags on Instagram, so those should be free. I know it's kind of generic, but at least it's not used up. I mean, Kelsi's Old School April is way too long, or else I would love to do that, but it's way too long. I think Old School Readathon is long, but not as long as that other one. So we're gonna go with Old School Readathon and Old School Watchathon for our hashtags, and I can't wait to see if you guys are going to be joining me. Please, please, please let me know. Don't leave me in the dark if you're doing it. The only way I can know is if you tag me on YouTube, if you make like a TBR video or a TBW video. If you tag me in the comments, that's how I could see it very easily. Sometimes I stumble upon people who are making videos that have to do with readathons I've done, and that's just by luck. Like, you can go at Slime and Slashers, and my name will pop up, and it will let me know that you tagged me in your video description. So do that if you're gonna make a TBR. Or post one on your community post. Just tag me there too if you just want to not even make a video, if you want to just post a graphic of your TBR or whatever. And same goes with Instagram. Tag me with my Instagram handle at SuperKickinIt. I can't wait to see what everyone's going to read and or watch. It's going to be so much fun. And stay tuned again for my whole TBR reveal and my TBW reveal. Again, that's a to be watched list. I'm just making that up myself. You could just call it a watch list, but I'm gonna like make it go with the TBR, TBW. It goes. So I can't wait, guys. I'm so pumped. I do have a whole bunch of thematic content planned, guys. Here's some things I'm thinking of doing for April in terms of content that's related to the Readathon and Watchathon. I'm gonna be doing a vlog of my first day celebrating Old School April. So whatever I watch and read, I will document, and then I will release whatever, you know, I did that day as a vlog. I'm also going to do, I hope I'm going to do at least, a VHS tour where I show you guys my whole VHS collection over at my parents' house. I'm also going to do an Are You Afraid of the Dark reading and watching vlog, so that's a specific vlog all about Are You Afraid of the Dark. I'm going to do a top 10 list of top 10 creepiest family-friendly, in quotes, movies. It'll be a list for 80s and 90s kids, so it's really 80s and 90s movies. In one case, a 70s movie that is really creepy and is perfect. Movies that were made for kids technically, but really could be scary as a kid. So I think that'll be a lot of fun to do. I'm also going to do an Are You Afraid of the Dark versus Goosebumps tag reveal video. Now, I'm not really sure yet if it's going to be an official tag or if I'm going to do it as like a collab where I ask people to answer the questions. But I feel like I have 10 questions and that's a lot, and that means that there'll be a lot of people sending in long clips. So I'm thinking it'll just be a tag, so that way everyone could do a video on their own channel and it won't matter how long they take to record their answers. Alright, so I'm also going to do, I think, a collab video where I have booktubers recommend books similar to Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. So they pick whatever Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that they want, and they talk about their favorite Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, and they also recommend books that have that same vibe as a Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, any episode. So kind of like I did today for you guys, I kind of want booktubers to do that. But if any booktubers are interested in that, let me know. If not, I might not do that video. We'll see. But I've been wanting to do a collab video, and I just don't know what I should do. Again, the Goosebumps versus Are You Afraid of the Dark would be perfect, but I have so many questions. It's a list of 10 questions. Everyone's videos could be 10 minutes, 15 minutes long, and then you get like a long-ass video like the one I'm recording today, and no one likes long videos that I do, so I don't know. Anyway, guys, for me, that is it for me today. I don't think I have anything else I'm missing. Again, I'm going to have all kinds of live streams about any books we read for our readathon, any movies we watch as the group watch. We'll have a live stream discussion set for May. And also, I will probably have a live stream discussion about an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. So promote whatever episode you want to have a live stream discussion on. Any episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, vote below with your comment. That really should be it. Again, look below for the Spotify playlist, for the list of Big Orange Couch episodes, and I will have a list of my prompts below, and I will have a list of a lot of the examples I gave in a Google Doc that I will link below as well. Alright guys, that really is it for me this time. I know it's been ridiculously long, for real. Till next time, you know what you can do. Keep on killing it. And kicking it old school. At least that's what we'll be doing in April. Bye guys!